You don't wake up one day and decide to become someone else. There is no announcement, no moment where your old self packs a bag and leaves. But sometimes you notice something subtle. The way you react feels different. The way you speak feels slightly unfamiliar. The things that used to matter don't land the same. And you can't point to when it changed. You just feel shifted. Not dramatically, quietly. Like furniture being moved in the dark. You still recognize the room, but you keep bumping into new corners. This is the silent personality shift, the one that happens without asking you. And it usually starts with a feeling, not a thought. You catch yourself holding back where you used to speak. You catch yourself caring less about things that once defined you. You catch yourself acting in ways that don't match the story you tell about who you are. And instead of clarity, you feel unease. You ask yourself questions that don't have sharp edges. Why do I feel different around people now? Why does this version of me feel thinner or heavier or quieter? It's not a breakdown. It's not growth in the obvious way. It's something in between. Psychology has a word for parts of this, not as a single label, but as a pattern. It begins with adaptation. Your brain is not built to preserve a personality, it's built to preserve you. In behavioral psychology, this is called functional adjustment. You change what you do based on what works, not what feels true. What feels safe, what reduces friction, what keeps social pain low. You don't become quieter because you want to. You become quieter because your nervous system learned that speaking had a cost. You don't become colder because you like it. You become colder because warmth went unanswered. You don't become different because you planned to. You become different because your environment trained you. And it happens in small moments. A look someone gave you, a silence after you spoke, a misunderstanding that didn't get repaired. Your brain stores these as predictions. In cognitive science, this is called predictive processing. The brain doesn't react to reality, it reacts to what it expects reality to do. So it starts editing you, not consciously, subtly. It lowers the volume on certain traits, it sharpens others, it shifts emphasis, not because those traits were wrong, but because they didn't fit the pattern of reward. This is how personality moves without permission, not like a decision, like erosion. You still feel like you, but slightly rearranged. And the lived experience of this is strange. You might feel like you're acting instead of participating, like you're managing yourself instead of expressing yourself, like there's a distance between what you feel and what you show. Psychology calls this self-monitoring, the brain watching its own behavior. Self-monitoring increases when social uncertainty increases, when outcomes feel unclear. So you begin to observe yourself from the outside. Did that sound right? Was that too much? Should I have said something else? Over time, this creates a split. There is the you that feels and the you that manages the feeling. And slowly, the manager becomes louder, not because it wants control, but because control reduces error. This is where people say, I don't feel like myself anymore. But what they really mean is, I don't feel spontaneous anymore. Spontaneity requires safety. The brain only releases it when it predicts low cost. When safety drops, personality compresses, like a river narrowing into a channel. From far away, it looks the same. From close up, it flows differently. The shift doesn't feel like change, it feels like loss. But it's not a loss of identity, it's a reorganization of priorities. Personality theory shows that traits are not fixed, they're tendencies under conditions. You are not introverted, you are introverted in environments where expression costs too much. You are not detached, you are detached when attachment feels unstable. Your brain doesn't ask, who am I supposed to be? It asks, what keeps me regulated here? And regulation shapes personality. This is why people feel different in different phases of life, not because their essence changed, but because their nervous system adapted to new rules. A workplace, a relationship, a period of stress, a long stretch of emotional uncertainty. Each one leaves a fingerprint, and over time, those fingerprints layer. You don't notice because each change is small, like walking the tide instead of the shoreline. The shoreline seems still, but the water is always moving. The silent shift becomes visible only when you stop and look. And when you do, it feels unsettling, because identity feels like it should be stable, but psychology doesn't see the self as a thing. It sees it as a system built from memory, habit, and prediction. Memory says who you were, habit says what you repeat, prediction says what you expect. Personality lives in the tension between them. When prediction changes, personality follows. This is why stress changes people, not emotionally, structurally. Under prolonged stress, the brain prioritizes threat detection. This shifts attention outward. It reduces play. It narrows curiosity. Neuroscience shows that the default mode network, the system involved in self-concept, becomes more rigid under chronic stress, not because it's broken, but because it's trying to conserve. So your inner story simplifies. Less risk, less openness, less variation. The shift feels like becoming less you, but from the brain's perspective, it's becoming more efficient. The problem is not that you changed, the problem is that the story of you hasn't updated. So you feel misaligned. Your behavior says one thing, your identity story says another, and that gap creates confusion. It feels like you're acting out of character, but you're not. You're acting out of an older model. This is why the shift feels silent, because it doesn't come with language, it comes with behavior. You notice it when you respond differently, when you hesitate differently, when you care differently. And the mind tries to explain it. Am I becoming colder? Am I losing myself? Am I changing for the worse? But the better question is simpler. What did my brain learn? Because every shift is a lesson, not a moral one, a statistical one. What led to less pain? What led to more stability? What led to fewer errors? And it built you around that. So how do you work with this? Not by forcing yourself back, not by rejecting the change, but by understanding the mechanism. First principle, separate experience from identity. You can feel different without being different. Emotions fluctuate faster than personality. Situations fluctuate faster than values. Cognitive psychology shows that state gets mistaken for trait. You feel withdrawn, so you think you are withdrawn. But that's a snapshot, not a structure. Notice what's happening without naming what you are. Second principle, track context, not character. Ask where this version of you appears, with who, under what conditions, after what kind of day. This is behavioral mapping. It reveals that personality shifts are situational, not absolute. You're not changing everywhere, you're changing somewhere. Third principle, let behavior update story. Don't wait to feel like yourself. Let your actions show you who you are becoming. Identity follows behavior, not the other way around. This is called self-perception theory. We infer who we are by what we do. So the shift isn't the problem, the delay in interpretation is. Fourth principle, reduce unnecessary self-monitoring. Self-awareness is useful, but self-surveillance is heavy. When you constantly watch yourself, you step out of experience, and presence dissolves. Neuroscience shows that presence quiets the narrative network. It lets experience lead, which makes behavior feel more natural again. Not because you changed, but because the manager stepped back. Fifth principle, allow the transition to be unnamed. You don't need a label for this phase. You don't need a story yet. The brain wants symmetry. Life creates asymmetry. In between, there is discomfort. That discomfort is not loss, it's reorganization. Now, tie it into one model. Think of personality like a shadow. You don't move the shadow directly, you move the body. The shadow follows with delay. Your actions are the body, your identity story is the shadow.
When you move, the shadow lags. The silent shift is the lag. You're already standing somewhere new, but the shadow still looks old. So it feels wrong, not because it is wrong, but because it hasn't caught up. This is why the change feels unnoticed until it feels confusing. You were moving the whole time, and now you're looking back. Quietly. And the ending of this is not a conclusion. It's an invitation. You don't need to go back to who you were. You don't need to define who you are. You need to notice who you are becoming, without panic, without judgment, just awareness. The silent shift doesn't mean you lost yourself. It means your brain adapted. And adaptation is not betrayal. It's survival with memory. Sometimes the most honest version of you feels unfamiliar because it hasn't been named yet, because it grew in response